This is High Tea and On the Path series, providing weekly insights and inspirations from the people who move food and beverage culture. This week's High Tea guest is Rita Jammet, New York-based restaurateur, hospitality advisor, and founder of Caravelle Champagne. Rita and her husband André owned and operated the iconic New York French restaurant, La Caravelle. The New York Times described La Caravelle as a French legend and a Paris and Manhattan experience to food enthusiasts and the A-list of American society. After closing the restaurant in 2004, Rita started to market and distribute La Caravelle Champagne, available in a number of distinguished New York hospitality, restaurant, and retail establishments. An avid champagne lover, Rita promotes not only her champagne, but the Champagne region and wines in general. In recognition for her services to the food, wine, and hospitality worlds, Rita was recently bestowed the Order of Agricultural Merit by France's Ministry of Agriculture and Food. Simply put, Rita is a part of the social and cultural fabric of New York's dining scene, a who's who, if you will, of New York's hospitality elite. But more important than that, Rita has a true love for people and hospitality and is actively building community and supporting her industry friends, colleagues, and the next generation. Let's hear what Rita's most excited about and looking forward to this week.
So much positivity and deliciousness and art and talent and, the joy of hospitality, basically. That's at the most it's ever been, at least from what I see. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit in an observing mode because I don't have a restaurant anymore. Mm-hmm. Been there, done that, 20 years. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So being, I didn't want to leave the industry. So being in the champagne and wine area, I'm still connected to the restaurants very strongly. Mm-hmm. Minus the headaches. So for me, it's fantastic to see how much diversity, how much talent, how much support within the industry, and the humanity of it is really, it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Because I'm at a point now where I only want to surround myself with positive, funny, beautiful, and kind people. That's it.
Same.
Yeah.
It's I find myself saying that as well, but it's funny. It's like, I wish I would have learned that earlier though. I'm still young, but it's like, that should have been the baseline, the foundation all the time is just really spending time with the people who fuel us. And as, the episode I did with Jamila, I love how she so beautifully said, people who bring us closer to ourselves.
Yes.
Which I think that's so important.
It is. Because we're always on that quest, I think all of us to discover ourselves or know ourselves better and make the best of it, basically. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing so much more of that positivity and support, the beautiful positive feelings. And I think it's just it's like filling the tank for me. And that also works, on a personal level with the family, the friends. It's really good, knock on wood. As long as the health is there, this is really very, it's a very positive thing. And it brings me a lot to have that around me and to be kind of part of it, within that arena. It's just wonderful. We've all been very shaken a couple of weeks ago when our dear friend James Kent suddenly was taken away. And he was a perfect example of what I described earlier, times 100. When you see the outpouring of support that, was present, it was just it was stirring the soul, really. Mm-hmm. And it's that our industry, it's the people, the humans, it's the support of each other, both ways. And it's just I think that's one of the goals in life, really, when you think about it. Yeah, accomplishments, of course, do go after your dreams and all, but having that in your life is just like you check a big box with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I can't remember what that quote is or who said it. You may be able to remember once I say it, but it's like, people may not remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
I think that's something that really rings true with this community of hospitality and speaking of Jamal James Kent, obviously there's an outpouring of support. Obviously there was a shock because many of us were spending time with him in Vegas, just a week prior. And there's been this outpouring of support for him and his family and obviously his team and the whole community, but specifically in New York. I know you were there for the memorial and the celebration of life, and you're talking a little bit about sort of that camaraderie. But what was the energy like? Because I know it's obviously this shocking, sad moment, but Jamila had mentioned to me and some other friends that there was also this this feeling of love and kind of hope as well, and how the whole New York community specifically who showed up for this, all the chefs, all the operators, were really this one big family.
Exactly. It was, it was really like a microcosm of life. You have something very sad and tragic, but then you also have the beautiful, funny sometimes, and beautiful sentiment in there. And that's really life, tragicomic kind of thing. But more the outpouring of love and support was just, as I don't think I've seen that before, to be honest. It's a very, very unique feeling. And to observe this was just a lot of emotions to take in, but it felt good in a way. As much as you want to erase the sadness and the shock of his passing, but it also, I think, made us all reflect. To come back to what you were saying before, it made us reflect on how we are with other people, consciously or subconsciously. And when you can have that impact on people, then you've done something right in your life.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're 100% correct. I don't even want to say it's unfortunate. That's the word that I'm thinking of, that it takes moments like these for that realization to happen. But, and people on this podcast have heard me say this quote many times, but it rings true now more than ever. Is like Benjamin Franklin has this quote, "The things that hurt instruct." And it's in those challenges and those difficult moments that we do have these awakenings. We do have these moments of clarity where we're like, wow, it brings us back to this place of like understanding and going, well, this is what really matters.
Exactly. It's kind of, putting things back with the priorities, the basics, the really the most important things are in focus now, which is important. Mm-hmm. And there's a saying that a saying or a thought rather. It's in the Tibetan philosophy. You have to go through rough times to have something to take a lesson, to learn a lesson, and to advance yourself. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you have to go through that. Mm-hmm. The beautiful analogy is you take a raw diamond. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shine. What does it have to go through for the beauty and the sparkle to come out? Mm-hmm. Like sanding, and it's just painful. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a stone, but still, on a human level, it is painful. You have to be like roughed up and sanded and ground and all that, and then the beauty can come out. Mm-hmm. So that thought always kind of, puts me back and calms me down when I think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I were chatting a few weeks ago, and when I was also asking you, as you're supporting and staying connected to the community, as you always do, you were mentioning to me how you're so excited about the younger generation, sort of that next guard, as well. Talk a little bit about that, and maybe you could even mention there are so many incredible young talents who are doing amazing things right now. But what are you seeing, and who are you really excited about to see continue to take the baton, and kind of move forward and impact food culture?
Yes, that was my second thought that came up immediately when you asked me the question, what inspires you, what makes you, what moves you? And that is just so heartwarming and inspiring, I have to say, because it could be also because I'm advancing in age, that I have many examples to see, and even within the little world that we have created with La Caravelle, or I see now what Daniel Boulu has created, Jean-Georges, Daniel Hume, all these, Thomas Keller. Look at the hundreds of young talent that have started. The seed was planted under these mentors and teachers, and then now you see some fantastic things happening and beautiful people coming out of their shell and really like expressing themselves and adding so much to the arena, to the community, to the world, basically. So I think that is the most beautiful thing. It's like when you grow a plant, you have the seed. Yeah, it takes a little patience. Sometimes it takes a little time, but when you see it come out, it's just, there's a magic in there and some feeling that is very hard to describe, but it's just the best. It's very, in turn, it's inspiring. You may be more advanced in age or one of those people who's created all that, but I find that being inspired in return by this and learning from these next generations, which is what I do with my sons. I learn from them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I may have taught them a thing or two, but learning from them.
I think you've taught them a lot.
We had good seeds.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. But it's just such a great feeling. The elder is learning from the younger one. It's a beautiful cycle mm-hmm. of life. Mm-hmm. So, and then in turn, these next generation that have blossomed out or are blossoming out now, they're also going to inspire more. So there's a multiplication and how do you say that trickle down effect? That's mm-hmm. just beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. No, it is. And I love that. It's like just last week, we released an episode with Jonathan Cano, who works very closely with Ryan Rotino at Jaunt and Bresca. And, he's an alum of Jose Andres. And so, it is amazing how that generation now has really fostered sort of this next generation who's, I think, pushing the envelope in a lot of ways and really impacting food culture, not just from a fine dining scene, but people who've gone off to create products or operate hotels or just make a more positive impact. And I think about the conversation that I had 2 seasons ago when we had Charlie Mitchell on and how, Charlie he's that generation where, he really talks about like chef's care. And so, that generation that was a little bit more rock and roll, a little bit more no balance, where Charlie is kind of approaching his work and his life with, hey, I also need to take care of myself because I'm young and I want to be in this industry for the next 3 decades, not burn out after the next decade. And so I love sort of that cultural shift as well, along with many other things.
Because the reality is, it's a very, very tough profession. You're under so much stress. And chefs, particularly, I call them artists under pressure, because that's really, you have all this to contend with, not to mention dealing with people, managing people, helping people, guiding them. I mean, you have to wear so many hats, as you know. And this is slices of life that you're teaching. Mm-hmm. And also learning along the way. So it's a lot for one human being, and not everyone has the same, threshold of that they can take that, Mm-hmm. So it's very good to this whole movement about the emotional and psychological support that is needed, because mm-hmm. it's hard. You can't not be affected by those pressures. It's just too much sometimes for some people.
Yeah, I was chatting with a chef friend, very talented chef here in Los Angeles. Within a year, opened 2 restaurants, critical acclaim. But he talks about, and many industries talk about this. But he goes, in culinary school, like nobody taught me how to be the great boss or the great manager or balance a spreadsheet or everyone kind of has to learn these things, especially at that level where you're being not only the creative lead, but also the business lead.
Yes.
And just as you know so well, managing people is also super challenging, and your staff, as much as it's a family, they bring in their emotional difficulties and some of their traumas and the challenges that they're having at home. It's like, we say don't bring what's from home into work, but it just happens.
Easier said than done. You do come with your own baggage, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that is a very, very important point, because it's like I studied economics. Why on earth isn't there a psychology course in these curriculums? I mean, in every discipline. Also, culinary school. What do you do without psychology knowledge? Nothing. You just have the biggest talent in the world, maybe, but if you can't access this, these tools and techniques and basically to deal with people and to understand yourself and then to understand other people, how on earth can you make anything work?
Yeah, Rita, I always say, I'm surprised anything actually gets done, because the barriers to entry are so vast most of the time. There's a brilliant book that I've recommended to many people. It's by Dr. Stan Tatkin. It's called Brain on Love, the neurobiology of healthy relationships. But he's not just talking about love relationships. He's talking about friendships. He's talking about relationships with our family. And this has a profound effect on how we show up in the workforce, how we show up for our friends. And I'm like, I wish I would have read this book and I wish I would have known these things, because he talks about there's nothing more difficult than two different people from two different backgrounds, from two different ideologies sometimes, coming together and working together.
Yes.
It's very challenging. And yet it happens every single day. It
does. That brings to mind an example when at our restaurant, La Caravelle, it was a French restaurant. Most of the staff was French and Latin, etc. But then at some point we had a Japanese chef, extremely talented. He was French, classic French trained and all that. But when it came to dealing with the French guys from Brittany in the front of the house, it was interesting, shall we say?
Yeah.
Thankfully, thanks to my international background and exposure to many cultures, I was witnessing one day a conversation, quote unquote, pretty active conversation between the two, and I was like, these people are basically saying the same things, but they don't understand each other. They don't understand that they're saying the same things, but they're saying it differently. Mm-hmm. So I said, guys, stop, time out. This is what you're saying, right? And that is what you're saying. Yes. You guys realize it's the same thing you're saying, but you're fighting over it. Mm-hmm. They were like, oh, okay. So that was so, I shocked myself when I realized that. I was like,
what would you like, being a restaurateur and the creative lead and everything with your husband, like, what would you say the biggest lesson or the biggest learning was in all those years of running a successful restaurant?
I would say start with your people, your team. Exactly that. Like know them, understand them, show some interest, and then have some dialogue with them, because they may have a lot of, how do you say, when you're prejudging something you don't know, you're not sure, you assume a lot of assumptions that are not close to the truth. Mm-hmm. So they get to know you and you get to know them and you can communicate, then everything will be much, much easier. Mm-hmm. That's not to say there are crises that you all going to master everything, but it will help a lot. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say, number one, super basic, when you're starting a restaurant, make sure who you are as a restaurant is apparent to other people. You might have it in your head, but if you don't show what kind of restaurant are you, what is your concept, really something very clear. And a lot of times it's not so obvious, but we don't realize it. Like, we have our head in it and we don't realize that. Mm-hmm. I think that's really a super basic point, but it would avert a lot of trouble later.
Mm-hmm. I think oftentimes the basic foundational things are the things that you have to sort of come back to, ultimately. Yes. It's like, what's our vision? What are we trying to say? Who are we? These are basic things that sometimes when you're in, as you're talking about, like tunnel vision and you're in it's difficult to see out of that. And so I love being challenged And that's why I try to have good people around me who challenge. It's not even challenging. It's really just saying, well, why? Why did you do it that way? And then you have to ask yourself those questions. You're like, oh, actually, yeah, I'm not sure. I just kind of did it. And then, it's like, that's what I love about business and love about the people that I get to work with is as much as I'm really learning about them, I'm also learning about myself.
Yes.
So much. And I think like seeing that growth, even with this podcast, has been really just a tremendous gift for me in so many ways.
Fantastic, by the way, really. I love how much emphasis there's on the human dimension and kind of taking a step back a little bit on things to really observe things that are not necessarily obvious, but when you bring them forward, it's just ta-da moment,
Yeah, well, I think for me the human story is not that talking about the food or the fermentation process or how this beautiful wine is made. I love getting into that and I love digging into that. But more importantly, it's like, why do these people do what they do? Why do they wake up every morning and sometimes lose sleep and kill themselves, not literally kill themselves, but kill themselves with the amount of work that is put in, the amount of strife that that is put into this, because these are tremendous works of passion. That's what's interesting and inspiring, to me, and fuels a lot of my creativity. One thing that I'm interested in is you've done so much. You've had a successful restaurant. You have the champagne, which I want you to tell our listeners about a little bit as well. But like when you engage in a project now, obviously you're gonna, like you said, you want to work with people who fuel you. You want to work with people who bring you closer, to the people and yourself and everything. Like what are those projects at this stage, in your career, are the ones that you really want to go for?
I think if you observe a little bit people's reactions that are not necessarily consciously about what you want to do, but about what you're already doing and how you're appearing, you can get some clues in there. Mm-hmm. Because this is how it works. You can wake up one day, I want to do this. Okay, great. Now, it's just go ahead and do it. No, just make sure, kind of see if that at some point corresponds to if there's a need out there for that, or a desire, or an interest in that. And that's to come back to the point about defining who you are and what you're about. That's where it comes from, because that'll spell the difference between success and failure. Mm-hmm. In my point, that's you get hints in when you post something and people have certain reactions. You're like, whoa, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something for me is natural, and everyone was like, oh my God. Okay. Or vice versa. Some things that I thought were crucial and they're
they're kind of
like, okay, great, thank you.
They kind of fall flat sometimes. You're like, oh, this is going to be really important, and it's like, oh, exactly. Oh, it didn't hit the way you thought it was.
Totally, and it's okay. Don't take it personally. Just like say, okay, noted. It goes in my box of solutions, and or not. So I think that's the usual. It all comes back to the interaction with your community, with people around you, with the people who listen to you or look at you. Mm-hmm. So, because it also goes both ways. When you observe, they're also observing, and then you get some great tidbits about that, about your next move, about your next project. And always, I think that's very interesting. Yeah. It's fun.
I think it is. Talk a little bit about the champagne and sort of your also just your passion for the region, and I think just French wine in general, like as well.
So it started, actually, my love of wine started when I was young. My dad was a very enophile. He loved wine, and we lived in Switzerland, in Geneva, and he became Chevalier du Taste de Vin, which is a big Burgundy society. So he used to take me with him, and I was 12, and I was like, I don't want to drink this. Just want to drink water. Oh, we have to make sure people don't see that you're drinking water, etc. So anyway, it started early, and that stayed in me. Later on, when I met André and started to work at La Caravelle with him, I learned a lot, and I was lucky to take lessons from. There was a friend of ours who was a distributor, and he said, "Tell you what, you invite me to lunch, and I'll teach you about wine." I was like, "That's great. That's great." He happened to run a school too, so that's how I learned about the rudiments of wine. And then you go where you're attracted. Like Champagne always attracted me because I really think that it's magic. Champagne is magic. Yes, it's hard to make good wine, but Champagne is good wine plus. There's so many factors that are necessary to make good Champagne. It's just that people don't see that. You walk in the store, you see a bottle. Oh, okay, great. $45, $50, $80, $3,000. But if they knew exactly what it takes to bring that bottle there, they would be dumbfounded. It's so much goes into it, and that's the part that enchants me and fascinates me. The more I learn, because I'm still learning. We're all learning every day.
We all are, yeah.
Yes. And then meeting the winemakers and speaking with them is just fantastic, and the growers, it's just so enriching. And for me, it's become a passion, and my trade also, because we had started the Champagne in the restaurant for our guests, only as an extra hospitality amenity. So fast forward, we did that in 98. In 2004, we had to close the restaurant. So here I am, like, okay, what am I going to do? I feel like I have the branded La Caravelle on my forehead. And another thing, I did not want to leave that industry. It was just like I felt it's my world, so I need to be in it. And how can I do that? So everyone was suggesting, hey, continue with the Champagne. It's like, this is tricky, it's a brand, it's a restaurant brand. And all of a sudden it's going to become a wine brand. Champagne brand is like I thought it was a huge, huge challenge. And I still went for it and learned along the way. And it took forever because I only call the people I know. I don't cold call. So that takes a long time. But then eventually, things.
Good thing you know a lot of people, Rita.
Yes. I have to say the support from the industry has been and still is incredible. Yeah. I'm about to relaunch the Champagne because we have a new producer. It's full of challenges, the delays. This is driving me nuts, but I have to be zen about it. So yeah, in the fall we'll have a new line of Champagne, and I'm pretty excited about it. So that's going to be a challenge. It's interesting to kind of question yourself and do a new start again. Yep.
New challenges, as we know. I think there's lots of learning that will come from that. And I'm excited. I'm excited to try the Champagne and engage and be a part of your community. And we're so excited to have you a part of ours. Rita, how do people best connect with you?
Instagram, Rita Jammet. And you could send me a message there, or my cell phone, or my, email, easier. First contact. Love it.
Thank you so much, as I said, for being a part of our community. Excited to aid in the launch. Keep us posted on sort of the new launch.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for reaching out and being so enthusiastic and inviting from the minute we met, really.
You have such incredible energy. Your husband does as well. And I'm a fan, so I'm excited to continue to grow our friendship. On the Pass is hosted and produced by me, Gabriel Ornelas, and edited and mixed by Dylan Agajanian, with original music by Dylan Agajanian.